Thanks, Mary. This panel is called How to Empower Parents as Agents of Change, and we're going to kind of cut it into two different pieces. First, come on up, Joe. I want to have a conversation with what I think is just a regular parent, right? I want to use you, Joe, to help us go there and understand exactly what parents, at least you, are dealing with today. And I think from our prior conversations, a lot of it will resonate. You know, parents believe in the power of sports and want their child to get and stay involved, but they're often lost on how to do that. They don't know what to believe or where to turn for good information. So this session, we're really trying to explore how to give them guidance and how to make good decisions with their kids. So we're going to talk with Joe for 10 minutes, and then we're going to bring on several members of Project Play 2020 who've been doing a lot of thinking about how to help parents get to a better place. So Joe is just a little bit of background here, is a parent of an 11-year-old son, Isaac. He is a family law attorney. He is a former CEO of that focused on a nonprofit that focused on mentoring low-income students. So Joe is very attuned to the needs and the challenges and the opportunities related to underserved kids. So Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Tell us about your son Isaac and his interest in playing sports.
So I have an 11-year-old son, Isaac. He just started 6th grade. From the time he was very small, I would say he was on the extreme end of active and reckless. And also, I would say very strong-minded. So from a very early age, and I would say pretty athletic. He's very fast, picks up things quickly, pretty agile. And from the time, and I live right here in DC, I probably live about 1.5 miles away. Went to DC public schools until last year. When he was very small, you know, the thing was to play soccer. And by the way, my son's adopted, he's from Guatemala. And there was a lot of cultural influence on why my son should play soccer, except for one factor, he had no interest in playing soccer whatsoever. And despite people trying to recruit us and everything else, he didn't want to do it. So I started this journey. We have played, I'm going to rattle off the sports that we have played. Lacrosse, swimming, Little League baseball. We are now playing soccer again, cross country, track and field. Last year we went to a new school, we started basketball. And this year, try as I might to limit, because I keep saying we have to, you know, I hear all this specialize. We've introduced flag football. I met the CEO of Flagstar. It's a great organization. And my son likes everything, right? He likes all the sports, but he decided in 5th grade he actually wanted to play soccer, because he went to a bilingual school and public school in DC where soccer, I mean, they would show the World Cup during math class, it was a really interesting, I'm like, you teaching math? Oh, we're watching the World Cup. And so he decided in 5th grade he wanted to play soccer, which is very late. And try as he might, we've tried 3 times to make a travel team, have missed all 3 times, despite the fact that he, I think, is pretty naturally gifted. Coaches have liked him. He just doesn't have enough time in the sport to play it. But luckily for me, he'll try anything. And I'm proud of the fact that we've tried literally almost every sport. I'm trying to think of one we didn't try. But I also feel anxiety now because I feel like I listened to, and by the way, you listened to sports sampling this morning and how great that all sounds. But the truth is, we're at a point where I'm not sure I know what path to take with him. And with a kid who generally likes all sports and likes to be active and likes to be busy. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, well, some of the data developed through the Healthy Sport Index shows, as I referenced earlier, that kids are playing high school sports now. In a number of sports are specializing by age 10. So that's what we're up against. I imagine that's.
I missed that window.
Yeah, which is sort of, how do you feel about that?
I feel I feel somewhat anxious about it. And my spouse was a Division I cross-country athlete at a major university with a great program. And we actually have tension in our household about this topic because he says, don't put pressure, let him have fun. Sports should be fun. The most important thing is school, because there were a lot of trades that he made in his academic education to be able to be a Division I athlete, and I think he regrets some of that. I'm like, I want him to be able to play a sport in high school. I have two sets of parents that have kids that just entered ninth grade in the DC schools, and neither of their kids were able to make any high school sport because they were like me. They were like, kids should play everything. And they're upset because, the kids now don't have, and they feel like it's not just because they want them to play a sport, it's the way to be connected to the school. My son loves wearing the jersey with the school name on it, loves it. It's a really important way to keep him engaged and feel proud. And I'm nervous that on the path he's on, like, will he be able to play any high school sport? And if he doesn't, what does that mean for his participation in any sports? I don't know, like, what's around for high school sports for him, but I would rather have him do that than play Fortnite. If any of you guys have kids, like, that's all you do is you fight Fortnite, right? No, I want him to play. I'd rather have him be active and play sports and learn all the lessons that we talk about. But I do feel very anxious that since I missed that 10-year-old window that I learned about, what does that mean for him in the long run? Do I have to cut things out that he currently enjoys doing with his classmates? If I go home and say to him, okay, we promised we were going to focus on cross country and soccer, but you want to play basketball. You can't play basketball because you have to do soccer all winter. He'd say, well, all my friends are playing basketball at school. And by the way, he's the worst kid on the team because he never played before last year. The first time he picked up the game, well, he ran across the court like Emmitt Smith, holding the ball. He ran down the court. I thought it was super funny, but apparently the coach and the refs did not think that was so funny. No, but he's he's not going to play. He's so far behind the kids I've been playing since second grade. And I think it's ludicrous that I have to sit here and worry about the fact that he's at 11 years old in sixth grade, he's far behind. It's a very long journey in life. But you put a lot of resources, too, of your time and your effort into figuring this out. As much as you spend on academics or maybe your retirement plan, I spend on this question. I don't know, and how to navigate it is very unclear to me. And I don't know what I should be shooting for. I don't have a goal. Like college scholarship, probably not. I'm fortunate that that's not a real issue for us. For a lot of families, it's a very important, significant issue. But what am I aiming for? Truthfully, I don't even know. I just would like him to be engaged in it and feel confident when he plays.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is, like, a little bit of bias. I've known Joe since high school. We've been friends for a long time, fraternity brothers, all that. I don't remember you being an athlete back in high school.
Because I wasn't. I was a geeky kid.
So why do you value sports so much? Why do you want your kid, what is it exactly?
I think part of it, I'll be honest, part of it is the experience I missed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that. Back in my day, it was like, you sort of did whatever you wanted. Your parents didn't even notice. Like if you wanted to sign up for something, you did. But if you didn't want to sign up for something, it wasn't like my parents were riding me in academically or athletically or anything. And so I wasn't a great athlete. And so I didn't sort of naturally find my way there. And I regret it. Like I want him to feel like that sense of team and that sense. I want him to have sports for life. So I think that as an experience, part of it is what I missed, which is converse to my spouse, who it's all he did. Texas State cross-country champion. Like you don't do that if you're not really good at it, but felt like missed out on other things in life because of that. So like we have a very interesting dialogue going on in my house about where all this sits. But I want him to be able to go when he's older. Like I think about in Washington, right, where we live, there's a basketball league of people that play, in business and politics. They play basketball. I want him to be good enough that he could do that when he's older, and feel confident that he could play basketball. Unlike me, who probably can't even do a layup properly if my life depended on it.
And so, Joe, what kind of resources do you feel like you need to navigate this Byzantine world of youth sports?
I would like to know, what are the outcomes if he does multiple sports, right? What am I giving up if I have him continue down this path of doing multiple sports? Am I giving anything up or not? I don't even know the answer to that. I think most people I talk to, they have no idea. Most parents I talk to, that are involved in travel soccer, which is huge in Washington, they've been involved in it so long, they feel like they can't give it up now because they've had their kid in it and they spent all that time in it. Half of them feel like, what am I even doing? Why am I spending my weekends going to North Carolina? We live in an area of 5 million people. But the truth is, I don't know if that's better or worse and what's better or worse for him. I really have no idea. I literally rely on word of mouth, talking to my friends to kind of figure out. Then I listen to these stories our kids can't make any high school sports like that. I'm like, ugh, this doesn't sound so ideal. But I don't know if that's true. If that's representative, if that's an outlier, if there are things I could do to help mitigate that. Should I specialize? Should I love all this talk today about, what is it called, sampling? Mm-hmm. You know, because it fits what we're doing, but is that the right answer for me sitting here today for my son? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Part of the challenge. So what I'd like to do is bring up our other panelists, and they can solve Joe's problems. Right? Come on up, Andy, and Jessica, and Jenny. So joining us is Jessica Berman from the NHL, who's second to the left here. She is the Vice President of Community Development, Culture and Growth, and Executive Director of the NHL Foundation. Andy Nielsen, who is a little bit closer to me here, she is the Communications and Marketing Director for Target. And Jenny Storms on the far end is the Chief Marketing Officer for NBC Sports. And all three are members, as I said earlier, of Project Play. Their organizations are. I'm actually going to skip the poll question because I think it's going to take up a little too much time. I'm just going to kind of dive into it. Okay. How to attack the challenges that Joe has put on the table. Who wants to take that one? Andy?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I've just been thinking a lot about the conversation you guys were having up here, and we had an opportunity to talk before, and I can empathize with the feeling of not knowing where to go or what to do. And a couple of the conversations earlier today I've been thinking about as well, and I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents. And so one thing that you could be doing for Isaac is just to model that sports are fun. Because as long as he thinks that they're fun, that's the number one. And who was it today? I think maybe when Kobe was talking, he talked about, you know, parents or kids do as they see. And so making sure that it remains fun and that you're involved in that with him, I think is a really authentic way to keep it real. And I mean, that sounds really simple, but I think we all get kind of wound up in the process and the program of it all. But that's one just sort of parent to parent thing. What else do you guys think?
I would say you said at the end of your remarks that you didn't know what you were looking for, but in your remarks you said there were two things you were looking for. You were looking for Isaac to feel part of a team, and you were looking for him to have opportunities to build confidence. And that's really the value proposition that sports should be providing. And the idea of whether you should sports sample, whether he should participate in only one sport, ultimately it's the sports organization's job to make sure that you understand the value proposition that they're providing. And I think that's really what all of this is about, really making sure that sports organizations understand the importance of communicating with the consumer, which is the parent, about the value proposition they're getting through their sports experience. And I think too often the communication is around logistics and administration and whether there's a win or a loss, and that's not really what kids care about, and it's not really what parents care about.
Jenny, what role can the media play, if any, in helping Joe get to a better place?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think I'll answer being in the sports media. I feel very strongly that we, in sports and in media, we spend a ton of money. We spend tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, focusing around professional and amateur athletics. And what responsibility and goals do we have to bring to life in the youth space? What kind of goals are we setting on the youth level that we should be doing more? We're spending so much time in these other realms, and like you're seeing him, watch these games, and he's watching the World Cup and having a great time. But we need to ensure that if we're the people that are bringing that to life, we're also spending the time and the energy on balancing with youth sports participation and making sure that not only are we bringing the athletes into these sports organizations for the future, but we're also responsible for building the healthier communities, the healthier lifestyles, and that we are supporting less of spending all that time on Fortnite and spending more time in the active lifestyle. So I think having a commitment as a sports organization is so important if you're going to be part of it at the highest level. And from a media standpoint, remember, we are the communicators. Anybody who's looking at a phone or an iPad or you're watching television, essentially we are the massive communicators out these days. And we have a responsibility to Joe to help him discover, navigate, and encourage We absolutely have to do all of those things across media, not just sports media, but we have to provide the tools that give him the opportunity to find what he's looking for, navigate through and find the right programs at the right price, at the right level for his son. But then more importantly, it breaks my heart to hear Joe talk about being discouraged in this realm. Like youth sports, you said it, it's fun, it's great. For someone to be so discouraged and talk in that way is, it's really disheartening. And we also as media are responsible for promoting the encouragement and promoting the reason why and ensuring that we do that to the parent. Stay with it, Joe. It's great for your kid. Isaac's going to be a better person. He's going to learn those life skills. What are we doing to give that to you?
Mm-hmm. Jessica, anything the leagues can do?
Yeah, I think the role of the league is really to be inspiring the rest of the community in its sport. We talk about the hockey spine. I know someone earlier, I think Matt Young, talked about the sports spine. We talk about the hockey spine, and we know that the NHL is the North Star and that we have an obligation to the hockey community to really challenge them to do that. And the other thing that we can do is really harness the voice of our players. And we know that NHL players could have a voice in this because their experience in this regard actually illustrates exactly the points that we're all emphasizing. And so if parents knew that hockey players, for example, may not have specialized in hockey until they were 12, that would be really compelling because whether you like it or not, parents and kids are going to aspire to play in the NHL who are playing youth hockey. That's just human nature. They're ambitious, and that's okay, and we should meet them where they are and give them the tools and the information to empower them. One of the things that you'll see later this year is that we've actually worked to pull all NHL players to get this information, and we'll be releasing that, which I think will be really compelling data to support the fact that to the extent you're working towards this or you aspire to be like Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid, you would want to know that he didn't specialize until he was 12, and he played X, Y, and Z sport until age 15. And in fact, some of them were multi-sport athletes at the highest level through high school. Mm-hmm. And we have that in aggregate data as well as individualized in some cases. And I think that data is going to be really compelling to parents and to kids who want to know, how can I be like you? You're my role model.
Right. I'd like to pull up these slides here. I don't know, is this on the side? With the 3 pieces of creative from Arnold Worldwide. We would like to really thank Arnold Worldwide, which is one of the top agencies in the world, for developing these for us. Each one is tied to one of the priorities that we're looking at within Project Play 2020, which is coach training, sports sampling, and asking kids what they want. And they're really compelling because it just underscores some of the points we're making here. You know, the idea that there's only one sport as an option. And if you look at the one on the right here, when it comes to kids in sports, winning is ranked number 48 among reasons why they play. Let me ask you this, Andy. Is there can retailers like Target, can industry in general help elevate the voice of kids and what they really want out of a sport experience, and help basically foster the knowledge and the conversations that are just not even happening in homes across America right now?
I think so. I think from a media perspective, brands can do much of what we've been talking about earlier, especially when it comes to empowering kids and empowering parents to share that peer perspective. I think that there is an industry or an authoritative voice, and then there is a trusted sort of parent and peer recommended voice. And I think the more that we can empower really inspirational and informational storytelling through the lens of the change makers themselves, the kids, and those parents, I think that's an opportunity that media and that industry, in particular brands like Target, I know Nike is here and others, can use their platforms for. Mm-hmm. In addition, from being a retail and a brand voice, Target also is focused on access. And so when it comes to community giving, I know that in your day job, you're working with those who are otherwise underserved. So I think when it, for parents and for kids who have the problem that you have of where do I go, what do I do I specialize, don't I specialize, that's a very different problem than parents who might be working 2 jobs and literally can't either afford the time or the money to get their kids in even one sport. And where we and many others in this room are focused are on providing access for all. So a couple of examples just being investing in, soccer play spaces. So Target is working with the U.S. Soccer Foundation to build pitches in otherwise underserved communities where those kids wouldn't have access to safe places to play soccer. We're doing community grants to offset the cost of soccer fees for kids across the country. We're investing in Girls on the Run. I can't remember if they're here today, but Girls on the Run to get more girls active in that program. And a host of other investments in the community so that others can participate, because your problem is a very real problem and it's different than the problems of parents who are facing
Yeah, like I have these are highly first world problems, right?
Yeah.
But I also would like my son to play sports, with people from all walks of life.
Yep.
Like when you go to a travel tryout in Washington, D.C., let me tell you, it's a very select set of people who are there. Or your kid's not quite good enough in baseball, you hire the private coach that's going to give them, whatever lesson they need to, and you can see how the gulf gets much wider. And it would be important to me to know that, if you joined a league, it was for everybody, it had access for everybody for all sorts of reasons. So I know my problems, are not really problems at the end of the day.
No, there are.
But I just think that there's a lot to this pot, I think, than just should that kid specialize or not, because I also think I would like for him to, as part of a better world, so to speak, to play with all kinds of different kids.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to, y'all know how to use Slido by now, right? Have you submitted your questions? Do we have any that have flowed in so far, Rania?
Working on it.
Working on it. Okay, keep working on it. Let me ask you this to the panel here. So Project Play 2020 is a really weird thing. It's a bunch of competitors in a room trying to figure out how to serve all kids 12 and under. This is supposed to be a safe space. We're all going to benefit if every kid in this country has an opportunity to be active through sports. We know that. All our businesses are going to do better. Even more importantly, the nation's going to be in a better place. Kids are going to be in a better place. We can all rally around that. So what are your thoughts on if and how Project Play 2020, this collection of organizations, can be useful in working together to address, because I think it's fair to say that no one organization can do this alone, right? Jenny, your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. Not every organization, not one organization can do it alone, but I think that's the beauty of kind of what you guys have been putting together is this combination of, like you said, in some sense we might be competitors in the space, or there might be people in different companies that might be competitive outside of these 2020 walls. But when you think about it, you build it in 2 ways. One is the culture of working together for the better good, and it's sort of the everybody gives, everybody gets scenario where this will be good for all of us. But I think the other thing is that we all bring different strengths to the table. We all bring different products and opportunities. Target, you're mentioning that you are in the community and you're doing so much touching those communities. You have athletes and you have these spokespeople that are bigger than life and have social followings in the millions and tens of millions that can reach these kids. And we're doing a lot in the youth sports space as well. 3 years ago, we bought Sports Engine, a youth sports platform. We call it sort of the open table for youth sports. We bring these pieces together and we will be greater. I don't think we don't have to step on each other. We don't have to overlap. We just have to get into the room for enough time to be able to collectively bring the resources and put those Legos together to build that Empire State Building, which is going to be so much more ahead of where we are today, even in a matter of months, because you have the right people in the right room making the right choices for the right reasons.
Yeah. And do you think there's a particular opportunity around reaching parents with these different assets? I mean, is that a real strength, you think, of the groups we have engaged?
You guys go ahead.
I would say it is. I mean, a lot of us not only inspire others to develop programming, but run our own programming as it relates to youth sports, and particularly that's true for the leagues. And PP 2020 is an opportunity for us to share best practices, particularly as it relates to parent communication. As an example, many of us around the other leagues run learn to play programs, and parent communication is one of the seminal components of that program for us at the NHL, for our program that we run with our Players Association. And really, we emphasize the idea of engaging parents in the journey, whether it's in the equipment fittings or in the graduation ceremony, or making sure they understand next step programming so that kids understand, okay, you've been introduced to sport and you like it, where do you go from here? And I know the other leagues, and really PP 2020 has really expanded the dialogue between and among us, whether we're at the table with you facilitating, Tom, or offline when we meet, since we're a lot of us in New York, to share ideas and best practices. So I think there's a lot of opportunities it creates, and it really shows us that we don't have to solve it alone. And many of our problems are the same, even though we have some unique elements in each of our sport. There's a lot that's really extractable and can be applied across the board.
But I don't think all parents are created equal either, in the sense of we're saying parents, but we also need to ensure that we're working together to talk about the different segments of parents, the different types of parents. Are you a single parent? Are you a low-income parent? You know, what are these different groups that we are wanting to speak to, and it's really important that we reach them with the right message on the right platform at the right time to engage them in the right way. And that's going to be the strength of bringing us all together, because every single one of our businesses and those that are working on the 2020 initiative, we all are reaching parents in different vehicles and ways and platforms. So being able to do that together is going to make it more of a laser-focused thing to the quoted parent, communication.
Yeah, I think your point about basically asset mapping is it starts with asset mapping. Any questions?
So our first question is, how can sports organizations empower and encourage more moms to coach youth sports?
Who wants that? You're all smiling and you're all nodding your head, so we all agree that more moms need to be coaching.
I'll take it from a mom perspective, a hockey mom perspective. I'll take off my NHL hat. Both my kids play every sport, I would say, just like you. But they also play youth hockey. And one of the things that I did last year, just on a personal level, was really wanting to see more moms engaged in our youth hockey association. It was mostly dads. And I, for a host of reasons, was the one for both of my sons doing the locker room moments and changing them. And really wanted to see more women present as role models facilitating the sports experience. And I organized a hockey mom night where actually USA Hockey came and devoted resources to really teaching the game to the moms. So all of the moms in our youth hockey organization got on the ice, and we had a learn to play session, a try hockey for free day for moms. And I can tell you that from a retention perspective, from a empathy perspective, the moms who participated in that program, they were more positive about their kids' experience. They were more tolerant of the complaining when it was hard, or like, I don't want to do it, or I had a hard day today. Like, they actually experience it themselves and were able to empathize with their kid and really be so proud of what their kid accomplishes on a day-to-day basis, because they were like, that's super hard. I can't believe my 6-year-old goes out there and like whips it up. That's amazing. And so I think just same theme of what we're talking about, just bringing them in. We need moms and dads. We need parent engagement. And the old model of 24-hour rule and, we need a divider with parents, like that's not the way to get buy-in. And it's never going to work to grow youth sports. We need them to be part of the solution and feel empowered.
And if they don't see themselves in the position, if you don't see it, you won't be it. Yeah. So I think for females in that coaching position, that's actually an amazing question that we'll take back to the Sports Engine world, because we could do pieces of content on women that are in these places and doing these things and push them out to the millions of email followers, just to be able to say to people, look, this is happening, you could do this too. How do you get engaged, and then supply them with the tools to be able to go out, partnering with NHL, do these youth hockey, learn to do it. If you can see it, you can be it. We can be the communicators for sure.
And a few moms actually signed up to volunteer and coach and become managers. Like, they were like, oh, this is not so far, and I can do this, and I don't need to have played Division I college hockey to be a parent volunteer for mites, which is like ages 6 to 8. Like, I can do this. This is not that hard. Right? I can be part of my kids' experience, and that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we're running over. So one last question, and then we'll get back.
Sure. So the next question is, can you talk about the role of colleges in this challenge of early specialization and pressure on youth, parents, and high school programs?
Anybody? Andy, I'm going to put you on the spot.
The role of colleges?
The role of colleges in being part of the solution?
The challenge, the
you-
problem.
Part of the problem is, well, yeah, so
I think you should actually take this because we were just talking about this beforehand.
Sure. So part of last year we weren't here at the summit because we announced our Declaration of Principles, which was kind of our value statement, and part of the research that formed the basis of our mission statement was conversations with some various different components of the hockey community, including colleges. And what we heard from college hockey coaches, which most parents would be surprised to hear, is that these are Division I, like top programs. We will not recruit kids who did not play multiple sports. Why are parents putting their kids only in hockey from age 8? Like, that's not going to make them the best athlete they can be. They will peak too early. And hockey in particular is a late developing sport. Mm-hmm. We need them to be playing multiple sports, so we won't recruit players who didn't do that. It's like, we need to get that message out, because if you're working towards that.
I was shocked to hear that. She mentioned that earlier, and I have to be honest, I was totally shocked and encouraged to hear that. That's an example of, just to get to the point about like the information, like there's so much information that you get as a parent, and especially if you're not the most savvy consumer, from so many sources, including a lot of the leagues and a lot of these coaches, like they want to promote their services, they're building businesses that involve your kids. I would love to know if there's a credible source of information like that, so I can say, okay, this is actually beneficial, not detrimental to have my kid play multiple sports. So as you think about the information exchange, if you will, of all the stuff that you're talking about, there is so much coming at you as a parent on top of the schedules. Like, let's face it, we all work more than we should. You're lucky if you can get your kid to the game at 4 o'clock. I missed a football game 2 weeks ago because I just got the schedule screwed up. And then on top of that, you got to figure out all this other stuff. You got to figure out a really efficient, credible way to get the information out to people so that they can also make those calculations as they're signing their kids up or not for sports.
there you go. Well, with that challenge, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you to our panelists for the terrific comments. Really great conversation. Bring back Mary here.
That was great, and it has inspired me to tell a quick story